What's up everyone, it's your boy Infrar-Ed. Welcome to the Scout Reports. Today I bring you an anime review of Joker Game, episode 12, the finale. And I'm gonna kind of blast through this breakdown of the episode because I want to give you guys a grade for this series, as well as give you my thoughts as a whole on this series. And I want to spend most of the time on that for the finale of this season, or for this series, because I don't think it's gonna get a season 2. But also, it wasn't too much meat to this episode as well. There was some nice things here and there, but it was pretty cut and paste. So it shouldn't take too long for me to blast through it, but we'll just see how things go. If it takes longer than expected, then thank you for joining me and thank you for waiting and watching it for so long as always. So without further ado, let's get down to the breakdown as this episode starts off sometime before, our main story arc or our main timeline, as we see a blizzard and we have two Japanese soldiers who are going through a rigorous training, and one of the men falls down and he's picked up by another soldier by the name of Tokisaki. Now Tokisaki is reprimanded by their commanding officer by saying that if you two can't take this training, then you might as well just die, because you're here to die for the army and die for the cause. Which Tokisaki doesn't agree with. The two kind of get into a spat, and Tokisaki is kind of wrongfully put into prison for insubordination. Once he gets into the prison, he is approached by none other than Colonel Yuki, who gives him the option to join his D agency, as the army has deemed Tokisaki as untrainable. But he gives him a chance to join the D agency. As you know, he takes on regular people and people that were cast out by the military for his organization. So instead of quitting, he joins the D agency. He also mentions that if he didn't quit the army, he was gonna go to Manchuria, maybe just chill back and lay back there. But apparently this guy does join the D agency, as this is who we're gonna spend a majority of the episode with, as we start off with a man who is dead, and he is found by his girlfriend and her friend in the apartment, and he also has a suicide note by him. This suicide note is kind of weird because, whenever you see a suicide note in espionage, it's never as what it seems. However, this man is who Tokisaki was supposed to target and monitor. This man was masquerading as a writer by the name of Carl Schwartz. However, he was really a double agent. He was an agent working for the Russians as well as Germany, and now we find him dead. So Tokisaki is now under fire because he practically failed his mission. He was supposed to get this guy and get his intel like all the D agent members are supposed to do. But now he is under fire by not only Yuki, but the rest of the D agent members as well. As this guy died, he had a suicide note, but you know what? It was done so clean that not even the D agents kind of believe that it was some type of setup. There's no evidence to point that there's been any type of foul play or anything. And they did find him dead. I mean, who are you gonna suspect for this? The women? But things are never what they seem in this series, because it is it is espionage. As one of the D agents actually finds out that on the letter in the bottom corner there were 2 X's written, which means double cross to England. So what we find out is that this guy Schwartz, he was actually a triple agent. He was working for Britain, the Soviet Union, and he was working for Germany as well. They still don't take Tokisaki from the fire though, as Yuki decides to send each one of the D agent members on their own path to investigate things from here. And then he sends Tokisaki to investigate the woman, who once again he feels doesn't have anything to do with this, but you never know. So we find out that the woman that he was dating was an actress. Both her and her friend were both actresses, as Tokisaki goes to visit her at her job, basically, as she's on stage doing a performance, and he's captivated by the performance. And he's backstage, and he notices that after the show she is left just big bouquets of flowers, just so much flowers that they actually have to take some of them away because it's so many. He also finds out that this woman for some reason reminds him of someone from his past. We see him walking when he's a little kid, and he's walking looking up to a young woman who has some type of connection, or she reminds him of this woman in some way or shape, form, or fashion that we won't find out till later in the episode. But there's still a couple of things more that we need to dig into while this is going on. As Tokisaki continues his investigation, he is met by all of the D agents one by one very discreetly, as they all go by and basically give him tips or bad tips telling them that the things that they found were inconclusive. There's still nothing indicating that anything was a setup for this man. You know, they tell him things like, you know, we didn't find anything in his house. You know, there was no invisible ink or anything on the paper. Pretty much just nothing's looking good for him on this case of proving that there was some type of foul play involved. But like I said before, these guys are spies. This was probably all part of a game all along. As one of the spies even say, you know, this is your case. It kind of felt like they were doing this to kind of help them, even though they were trying to act like there was not. As he even gets to the point where we find out that he had the guy that takes the flowers away tailed by another one of the D agents. And this is where we find out that it was something definitely going on with the flowers, as one of the people who was tasked with taking the flowers away was actually a Soviet spy, and he was working with another spy, and he would take the flowers to another spy who was actually the friend of the actress. And Tokisaki noticed that these flowers, the scent of these flowers was the same scent that he smelled in the house when they found that Snyder was dead. However, what they were doing with the flowers is how they were passing their messages between the two. See, and just like I mentioned earlier in the episode where we found out that Snyder was a triple agent, the Soviets got wind of that and decided to snuff him out because he was going to take the information that he was getting from both Germany and USSR and give it to Britain. So they snuffed him out, and basically it was the woman's friend of Snyder. It was Snyder's girlfriend's friend was the one who was actually the Soviet spy that killed him by poisoning his wine while she was in the house one day, because, you know, they were good friends, so they probably visited all the time. And she wrote the suicide note and put it there, and she left a double X on the note as a warning to Britain, letting them know that they were on to Snyder and what he was doing. So I keep saying Schwartz. I think his name was Snyder. So forgive me for that. Again, you know, Joker game with the details. Sometimes you can just get out of hand with things. But either way, whatever the guy's name was, he ended up being a triple agent. And they left a note to Britain basically saying that the gig was up. So Tokisaki basically said he put that together. That's why he had the flower guy, the guy that was carrying the flowers, investigated by the other agent to prove that. So they figured that out. They arrest the woman, and now the mission is being debriefed by Tokisaki and Yuki back at the office. Wow, I can't believe I messed that man's name up like that almost this entire review. Probably all the review. Again, his name was Snyder, but overall you get what I was saying, and this guy was basically a triple agent. And now we're getting the debriefing with Yuki and Tokisaki, as Yuki points out that the reason why Tokisaki failed is because he was distracted. You see, the actress lady reminded him of the lady that raised him. That's why he had that flashback, because his parents died and then he was raised by his grandparents, and then this younger woman took him on and raised him from there. But one day she left with a man, and then she never returned, and she died of tuberculosis. So that's always been in his heart. It's always been heavy in his heart. So when he seen this woman, it reminded him of that. However, it distracted him to the point that he never noticed that the friend was the spy and the suspicious behavior that she might have been putting out all along, thus causing him to fail. And because he failed the agency, he put in his letter of resignation to Yuki. But you know, Yuki actually asked him, is he sure? He gave him another chance, saying, do you want to leave? But he chooses to do so, as he looks at the rest of the agents and comes to the determination that he doesn't have it in his heart to be the monsters that the rest of the agents are. So he makes his leave for the D agency. And it kind of goes back and forth here, because he makes his leave from the D agency, but he goes to try to find the actress lady. And he finds out that she quit because, you know, now her boyfriend's dead, and then her best friend was a spy and was working against her all along and killed her boyfriend. Now she's arrested. So she quit, and then she decided to leave and go to Manchuria, which was the same place that he wanted to go to, you know, back before he even became a D agent, and settled from there. So we go back to when he was talking to Yuki, and he decided that he's not gonna be a member of the D agency anymore and take his leave. As a gesture, you know, Yuki actually assigns him as a lieutenant colonel in Manchuria and bids him farewell by telling him, don't die. You know, that's the motto of the D agency. So he says, he turns around and he greets Yuki as well, and he actually bows to him as Yuki smiles and says, "What are you doing? A person in a business suit shouldn't bow." So this is actually a callback to the first episode, as this is the man that Yuki was talking to before we met Sakoma back in the first episode. But again, I can understand how people probably didn't catch that because everybody looks the damn same in this series. But that was actually somebody completely different that he was talking to, and then we met Sakoma. So that was a nice little pull back to the beginning of the series, but it might have been a little bit too late to try to tie everything together, and that might have been a little bit too trivial, even though it was nice to show that they were paying attention, or that you maybe were paying attention if you caught it, that this was actually the scene from episode 1. So yeah, that was the episode in a nutshell. Overall, it was a pretty good episode. Just like I said, the second half of the season was all pretty solid. But now this is what's going to lead me to my final thoughts on the series as a whole, because they could have made this series so much better if they would have went 3 directions with it. One of these 3 directions could have made it better than what we got. Number 1, this shouldn't have been a regular series. It should have just been like an OVA, because each episode didn't link to anything. I mean, we came in under the impression that even at the episodic pace that it was going, it probably would have been better if they would have just gave 1 episode per agent, but gave us a longer time with them. Or maybe if they were trying to make this a series, it should have been 24 episodes. We've already said that, because look at the ones that were either a 2-part or the one that gave us an agent and gave us more time with them. They came out great than the ones that we got in the first half of the series. So number 1, it should have been an OVA. If it was just going to be self-contained episodes that you can sit down and watch and don't have to worry about things being linked together, it should have just been an OVA instead of an actual series. The second route they could have went about is they could have made it the adventures of Colonel Yuki. I mean, the second half was dominated by flashbacks of Yuki and people trying to catch him. That could have been the entire series of him just telling these stories about how he got out of certain jams or going through his origin. And it could have just been the legend of Yuki with the episode count that it got with only 12. It would have been a good way to contain that, or just having them being self-contained stories about his misadventures. The third way, and I kind of touched on this already, so maybe it's just 2, but the third way is it could have just been a longer series overall, and then they could have gave us an episode about each agent. So those are ways they could have made the series better. A lot of people dropped it right away because it may have been too episodic, or it wasn't getting to the point, or it's too predictable. Me personally, I was fine with it because it was not a series about high school students and fated to save the world. It was about real life things. It was about adults, and those are the things that I like the best, with seinen, psychological, and things like that being my favorite genre. So that was his shortcoming, is that, you know, they squandered too much time. They squandered a lot of time on this series that could have been better spent. And I don't think it's production IG's fault. I think because they usually go in on series. I mean, look, they gave you Ghost in the Shell and Psycho-Pass. So that was some of the hype that we got coming into this, thinking that this was going to be the same thing. And it fell just flat of that. So that was unfortunate, because it's a really good series. I mean, it's the type of series that, you know, I don't want to say I won't tell somebody don't watch it, but I would tell them to watch it if they had some time to kill. So what would I give Joker Game overall? Overall, I would give it a 6 out of 10. I mean, it was just a little bit over being halfway. It wasn't a complete waste of time, but you can completely understand why somebody probably would have dropped it, or they didn't get what they expected out of it, because I know I didn't get what I expected out of it overall. But I still enjoyed watching it because what it was, and you know, it was like a more adult, it was a more mature series, and it's a type of thing that you can kick back and watch, similar like Go-Go 13. So yeah, that's the episode in a nutshell. That was a review, and that was my overall grade for Joker Game, so I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought of this. Go ahead and hit the like if you liked the video. If you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as I bring you guys content almost daily. Let me know if you like the format, like for the end of all of the series, if you want me to give it a grade. Let me know what you guys thought about that too. And as I always say, you guys can be anywhere on YouTube right now, but you chose to listen to me, and I really appreciate that. So thank you guys very much for stopping by. I will see you guys on Monday. I will be bringing reviews, like I said in my other videos, for sure, for Boku no Hero Academia. At the very least, you'll see that, and I'll be filling in the rest of the week with the finales of things like Kabaneri and Kiznaiver, and try to get you guys out as much information as I can on those days next week. And as far as ReZero and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Unless they were like really groundbreaking, I won't have a review for those because they're ongoing. We're still going to have those in the summer. So on that note, thank you for joining me once again. It's your boy Infrar-Ed signing out. See you soon.